Why do you scream at me? Why do you think that it's free? It's not a choice made by me. Once we fall, soon you'll see. When I looked into your eyes, I can see we need to change our lives. Let me in, then we both win. But not knowing that you're killing me. This silence, it's building, tearing me fearfully. This silence, it's building, tearing me. I'm screaming.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to a Monday night hanging here on a Monday because we're doing a Monday night hang. Did I mention it's Monday? Yes, I'm Ben. This is the one and only Michael Nielsen of Big Hairy Guitars. He knows all the digitals. I know none of the digitals. He knows all the digitals, but he also knows analog. He knows a lot of stuff, folks. I'm going to pick on his brain. I hope you do too. And welcome, my friend.
Thank you. You're back there, but I'm watching sort of here, so I'm gonna get vertigo by staring at the latent YouTube stream here. But hey, tell me about this intro song. That's awesome.
Okay, so I had a band, and we tried real hard. No, well, we did actually, and literally met up with a buddy from high school who had moved to Toronto, made some money, and he said, "Hey, I'm not doing too well health-wise. I want to hang out with Rock Band. Let me be your business manager and help finance this thing and help you out." So, okay, on a variety of reasons. You know, great guy. The hang is the biggest thing to me anyway. So he decided we needed to make a demo. Oh, okay, you know. Well, where do you want to record? So me being a smartass, I said Metalworks Studios, because that's the #1 rated studio in Canada, has been basically since Little Mountain Studio shut down out in Vancouver, owned by the band members from Triumph. Tons of great records recorded there over the years, so I opened my big mouth and said that. So he calls over. Turns out music industry isn't what it used to. Everyone's 9 to 5, Monday to Friday these days. You can rent the place for a fraction of the cost off air or off hours. So we booked a Labor Day weekend one year and went in there, cut 8 tracks in Studio One with a Neve board, and that was part of it. And because of YouTube and copyright and stuff, how does a fella do an intro video and not get copyright? Well, when I left the band, I didn't turn over the copyright to that album. I was the guy that registered it, so I guess I own it.
It's rocking, man. I love that.
Thank you.
What did you do on it? Did you play guitar?
I was rhythm guitars. That is not my guitar tone on the intro. I never liked that guitar tone. But I played rhythm guitar and did backing vocals. Some of the screams are mine. If I played it, the whole thing, there's multiple screams and this and yeah. I drop C tuning, Les Paul shaped object. Full bore metal.
What amp did you bring your own amp for that?
I did a solid state bottom of the line Fender Frontman 212. Well, Frontman 100, so 100 watt 4 ohm solid state. Hit it with an MXR full bore metal. Yeah,
that's awesome.
All the chug.
That is great. See, I am. It's hard doing demos sometimes. Like I've had sort of backhanded compliments on occasion that are. I'm not the only one. There's a lot of guys that do good sounding demos, but they'll say like, "Oh, you can make anything sound good," which, yeah, you sort of can if you're using it in the right context. Like you could take something that in a head-to-head A/B competition against like a BE100 Deluxe will not win in isolation, but if you have a cool song and a cool track, like you could use whatever works, and it's going to sound awesome.
Yep. The other track I played for the fine folks on here, I played a Jay Tercer Les Paul on that track.
I know that name. Is that like a Harley Benton sort of equivalent?
Oh, it wishes it could be a Harley Benton. These retailed for 175 Canadian, which would be about maybe 100 and a quarter, 150 US, and but did a thing.
That's good.
I gigged with it. It was funny. I had the headstock, the logo taped over for ages because people are like, "What is that?" I'm like, "Here, play it." I'd hand it here, like, "Oh, this place nice. Hey, what is it?" I'm like, "Jay Tercer." No. Yep. And you didn't care if it got stolen because it's $175. So
yeah, that's great, man. I love that. Did you? I can't tell. There's there glare. Did you swap the pickup? Oh no, they're both nickel cover pickups.
Yeah.
That sounds killer.
Stock pickups, stock tuners, stock nut. Yeah, wow. We got a crowd in here. Let me just check out in here. We've got Ferd Burfel, Dave Chase, OU812, Ryan, Josh Tanberg, Zach Thong, Charles 75N, Graphite and Cigars, Tone Dragon, Christopher Live Sawa, BC Rich 581, Joe Hervey 84, Sean Pierce Johnson coming up on the channel in a couple of weeks. Guitar Man 45, Terry's 3Gs. Awesome. Thomas Santiago. Didn't think I'd sing your name. Did. Dean Hostetter, Patrick Traits, Ryan Hall. Survived his birthday yesterday. Good to see. T. Ricky in the house. Stephen Douglas. Michael Torin. Field Button. Riff. Hey, Mike. Tomsy 49. Good to see you. Dave Chase. And a bunch of, wow, chat's flying. And a bunch of others. Hello. Mark's Gas Station. Yo. Lionheart 70. Nice. All the regulars. The usual suspects, if as it were, according to RJ. Which, hello to RJ watching on the replay, who's out checking out Steel Panther tonight. He was on last night.
That was awesome.
And he forgot to mention that on air, and then he mentioned it to me after we got off here. Travis Whiteman in the chat. My man over at Long McQuaid. Juice T. FPV, what's up? New name in the chat. Welcome. Dave Trombetti. Love that name. Dave Trombetti sounds like he plays in a progressive band from the 90s. Dave Trombetti. Oh, yeah. Right.
He's a drummer, though. That's a drummer name, man.
Yeah. And if you have any questions for either of us, use the @ sign, question marks, stand out with a super chat. Do whatever you need to do to stand out. I know I missed a couple questions and comments last night, but y'all were chatty. Just saying. And just like that, a question appears. Stephen Douglas. Michael, if you were going to start a band today, what genre would you play? What guitar and amp are you taking to the first gig?
First, I'm going to try and make it brighter. Someone said it's a little dark in my room. It's one of those weird things that if you're standing in here, it is so bright. But then to get the camera balanced to where it looks nice, where there's black is black and skin tone is skin tone, it's just a mess. And it's so beyond me. Stylish. Sean Pierce Johnson said it's stylish. That's what I was going for. So
I believe him. Yes.
If I was going to start a band today, what genre would I play? What guitar and amp would I be taking? Well, okay, so my goal this year is to put out a solo album. So like when I've been doing demos, I've been trying to make the songs longer, and I have some songs that I really like that I'm trying to go back and extend and really kind of taking that approach to the stuff. Not on everything, but on certain things that I really dig. And if like you went and picked up, let's say, like I was listening to the Marty Friedman, Jason Becker Cacophony album.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the Vault this afternoon, and it's what you're getting. Every track is that one track, and I just don't work that way. So it's like all over the map, which will probably make for a really bizarre listen down. So to say like what would the genre be? It's
Everything.
really all over. I
like
think it's safe to say that at least 1 in 3 tracks will have some sort of like ching 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 in it.
So it's your own personal K-Tel compilation album.
Yes.
All done by yourself, which I dig.
Yes, exactly.
That's the way my music tastes are. It's all over the road. So
me too. If like I used to have when we did CDs, I had this little wood CD rack, and I don't know, I maybe had 40 CDs that were the mainstays, and it was everything from like Testament to Amy Grant to Toto to Disincarnate. Like it was just all over the map. So no matter who came in and looked at it, they were like, "This is not cool."
I get it. Lionheart 70, yes. Should mention, unfortunately, last night we lost Gary Rossington, the last
what a player,
founding member of Lynyrd Skynyrd, and at age 71.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, heard before the show, but nothing was really public, so wasn't going to mention anything last night. But it's everywhere today, so yes, definitely. Rest in peace, Gary. I was able to meet him briefly once. I've told the story on the channel a few times, and it was that was mind-boggling because it just they were playing a pre-race show at a NASCAR race, and I took a shortcut to go to see the show, and I ended up backstage for a moment. It was literally you turn a corner and you see Ricky Medlock's 58 Explorer, and you're like, I know that guitar, and I am not supposed to be in this area. So I took some photos and then went around side stage and watched the show side stage, and then briefly met him on the way out because they got into a little traffic jam situation, and their tour manager left the window down in the van. So, I knew who was in there. I'm poking my head in just saying, hey, great set. You're cool. Loved your anniversary Les Paul. He goes, oh, you knew it was anniversary? It's like, it's a cherry burst with gold hardware. You don't see one of those every day. Which immediately he went the relaxation level. Okay, he's not crazy. Well, he's crazy, but a different kind of crazy. So
it's a good crazy.
So, yeah.
Did he like continue at that point, or he's like, cool, now beat it?
First he was kind of like, who's this? But he had the background singers with him, and it was cool because being side stage when they weren't performing, they were going backstage, and I was like, kind of and say, like, you guys are doing really good, stuff. They're like, hey, thanks. And they're kind of like, he's cool for whatever reason. And so he's like, oh, thanks, man. And then I was about to ask something else, and that's when the tour manager needed to get back in because they had another show that night in Greensboro, I believe. So, okay, cool. So my brief, encounter, which was really cool. I enjoyed it. Gary
is one of those guys that, like, it's kind of like the amps where, like, if you put someone head to head, he's not going to win the head to head competition. But when you throw him in a song, like, that dude could solo for 4 minutes, and everyone in the room is like, yeah, this is great. Keep going.
Yep. Great soloing, great rhythm playing. And you don't get a lot of both in life, it seems.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Ooh. Oh, you wait one too with the super chat. Ryan asks, who is the go-to for vintage rack gear service?
You know what? It's really hard. I have a TC Electronic TC 1210 chorus that I've been able to A/B against Michael Torrens, and his is cleaner. Mine feels a little overblown. I feel like mine is a little off, and I cannot find, for the life of me, cannot find someone to touch it. No one wants to touch it. I have an old Yuri rack EQ that now it's dying. It belongs to Michael Wagner, who's a huge 80s rock producer.
Yep.
Master of Puppets, did Extreme, White Lion. Massive. Everything was Michael Wagner, Skid Row. So everything passed through this EQ. in my head, it's like, oh my gosh, I know it's analog and stuff, but at somewhere in there's some DNA of Master of Puppets and Nuno.
There's something in there. Yep, there is a mojo. I get it.
Yeah. So I want to bring it back to life, but no one will touch it. No one at all. So finding someone to do rack stuff is super.
Ironically enough, Modern Vintage says, ask the guys at Vintage King.
Yeah. I guess it depends. You know, since we're on the guitar side, if it's digital, you're kind of screwed. It just kind of is what it is. If it's an 1176 LA2A Pultec, then yeah, Vintage King is super great. But if it's a PCM 42 or PCM 70 or whatever, it's really hard to find anyone to touch that stuff. Even Tide H3000s, who they notoriously go down. Like there's one place over in Burbank here that if anyone needs it, they could call me and I'll give them the number, or email me, I'll give you the number. But yeah, it's hard to find people that touch that stuff.
So to answer your question, Ryan, when you find somebody, let us know.
Yeah, exactly.
We had a few people ask, give us a brief history of yourself, a little backstory. How'd you end up being on YouTube and hanging out here?
Yeah, so let's see, I'll get into, I went to UCLA, and at that point, I probably couldn't spell a G minor chord, I think, but I could shred over E minor and I could shred over A minor. But if you gave me A major, I was screwed there also. It's in big trouble. Didn't matter though, because I felt like I had a pretty good ear, and at the time, all I needed was those two keys anyway. Anyway, I had hooked up with a dude who ended up becoming a really good composer. He was a great musician, and we instantly were buddies and took off. We just started I would have become a history teacher, but he was doing music, so I was like, oh, this is kind of possible. Let me go and try this too. So in, let's see, I guess late 90s, early 2000s, I had a pop production thing, a group of production team, and we produced what did we produce? Some Baha Men stuff, a lot of Disney related stuff, because at the time it was all these Disney kids. Mm-hmm. And then I was so sick of
the music career when they grow to the kids films, right? Before, and Disney doesn't really do the adult films not those kind of. Kurt Russell, how he was able to transition all the way through with Disney. That's what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah. No, this was more like the TV shows. If you had a TV show, then they wanted you to have a single also.
Right.
So we were doing a lot of that. And we'd have good songs, and then they'd come in with a bad singer, and it would be a mess. So I ended up kind of leaving that. I had a lot of success licensing music, never had really big hit songs. And from there, I started doing light scoring stuff. Mm-hmm. And this is still coming out of musically, I didn't know too much, but they're like, hey, you want to write for orchestra? Of course, no problem. Sure. It's like, oh my God. Now I'm really in the deep end here. So yeah, it was a crash course, and it was a hard climb. But yeah, so I ended up doing that. And I think a lot of the stuff that I had to lean on, the negatives that I had in the low level of harmonic musicianship early on, I had to make up for in any way I could. So I made up for it in production quality and my mixing skills and engineering and taste and all of that. So that sort of got me into scoring. And then I was able, anything you could learn. So I learned music.
Sure.
And I learned how to write for orchestra and all of that. So everything started coming together. And for about 10 years, I was just writing orchestra and little tiny bits of guitar. And I was just frustrated because I'd want to play guitar, but there was no reason to.
Right.
And I think I saw at the time, it was a while back, early fluff videos. And I like early on, he was doing some nerdy stuff that was great. Like take strings off and see which strings you can put in soap and they would come back to life. Like what was the best string for taking off and putting back on? Really just stuff that very few people probably care about. But I thought that was the best. So, and no one was doing any sort of rack related stuff, and you could buy rack related stuff for like $150, $250. And so that's kind of how I ended up there. And I was like, well, this will give me a chance to play guitar. And I just wanted to do covers and do nerdy stuff. And then the darn copyright strikes came, and I'm like, oh, I can't do all covers because I'll get taken down all the time. So then I had to start writing my own stuff. And Dave Friedman ended up making me a pedal board. He'd done a couple things. I'd taken him like an old Randall amp to get modded and a couple things here and there. But I wanted to make a pedal board. I had this gorgeous pedal board, backlit light blue pedal board. It was huge with everything under the sun. Mostly analog stuff, like a deluxe Memory Man, fuzzes, octave fuzz, and that. And it took forever to get made because every time it was about time, he would say, Slash just came in. They're going on tour. I got to get this to, okay. Yeah, what am I going to say? Joe Perry just came in. Okay. I'll wait. So after that, I think he felt bad. And then we sat down and chatted and like, oh, we see eye to eye on a lot of stuff. So, and because I live close to their shop, close enough, like 20 minutes. They're right around the corner from my kid's school. And so when he had a new product, I'm like, "Oh, can I take a look at that?" And then he had just launched the guitar brand, and so that at the time they had a bunch of guitars on the wall. I'm like, "Let me take one of those guitars, and I'll make a video of it." And that's kind of, I know that's a long meandering story. I got to figure out how to cut that down, but
no, but we're nerds here too, so that works. Apparently, we're getting some reports your video is frozen, which I've noticed as well.
Oh, crud!
Audio is working great.
Okay, let me see if I get.
Oh, you're back.
Oh, I wonder if when my computer goes to sleep, it shuts everything down.
That seems to be a yes. I'm going to go with that.
Okay.
Thanks,
Sorry
folks,
about that, guys.
It's all good. It's just a good ventriloquist. Exactly.
That's pretty good.
Nice. Well, yeah, that's a varied career in many ways, and I get it, and especially the rack thing, because I'm looking at doing a rack at some point because I have an old rack road case and I have an Alesis Quadriverb, so that's reason enough. And then I just figure I'll wait, and if I come across stuff, cool. Stick it in.
There you go. Yeah, the Quadriverb was my first piece of rack gear when I was 16.
I always preferred,
to be quite honest, like I think everything is sort of like these sort of sliding scales to a degree. For instance, like you listen to some unbelievable player that might not have a good tone, but they're so unbelievable. And I think they are focused on the music. And then there's some people that have a really good tone, but they're not a good player. And it's all fine because it's just this sliding scale. Like you said, rhythm guitar, lead guitar. Where are you going to put your energy in the day? And I personally, if it was a job where all I could do was sit in Bob Bradshaw rack stuff and like, all right, let's add more delay. Let's tweak this. Like, I'd be perfectly happy.
Sure. Hey,
I'm
Mark
sort of
Taft.
forced into writing music.
Mark Taft owned the Alesis Quadriverb. He sold it to Shanahan. Shanahan sold it to me. That's what it was. But I don't remember what I traded him for it. That's the question. I know it was some gear trade. He probably wanted a pedal. He says, I'll give you this for it. Sure. Fine with me.
That's awesome.
It's a piece of gear that I didn't already own.
It's really good. It's really good. And if you have an empty rack, you must fill it. I think that's the rule.
Yeah, it's just load bearing. It's holding up a PV Classic and a Fender Blues Deluxe apparently. So
Which PV Classic do you have?
That's like an original one from the 70s.
Ooh, cool.
It's got square magnets on the speakers. That's all I remember about it.
PV, super underrated.
So
Everything
I haven't
PV.
plugged it in years. I should. Needs some service, but what are you gonna do? Travis will help me build. Yeah, Travis has a whole rack system. That's right. He lent to me a couple of years ago. I did a video on it. It's like, I don't know what half the stuff does, but it's really cool. And then I just turned everything on, pretty much.
Oh, you wait one too. Does Michael do house calls? I do house calls, but it depends on what you need me to do.
He's also outside of Atlanta, so
That's far. I do anything for money.
it's a 40-watt podcast. I was gonna say I came across you because of some Friedman stuff. I remember because I always enjoy that taste of tone, and then checking out your, you can take algorithms and dial them in so they sound as good as the analog stuff. I'm just gonna say it. I'm generally an analog snob, but if I needed a virtual rig dialed in, you're my guy.
Thank you.
Hands down.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm kind of passionate about that stuff. I like doing that. But I think it's partly you have to experience the stuff. A lot of people who are into digital, we'll say, have always been into digital. And so that's where their taste lies. And I think a different sort of like aesthetic that comes from that. And, I've gone from being like totally anti-digital. I was so mono for the longest time. Everything was mono. And then, you bring that stuff over and to be honest, working with other people who are so strong in their color, like you get to pick some of that stuff up. Like I did a lot of work, and he's still a dear friend with Philip Sace, who's an incredible guitar player, fellow Canadian. Yeah. It's mind-blowing. And you just sit with them and you go, oh, that's how you dial in the guitar tone. Totally different. And you have to be open to that stuff.
I think he's the loudest Canadian. Well, Phil X, that's a coin toss. Those are two loud Canadians. That's a tough one.
Yeah, I wonder. I would put Phil. Oh, there you go. Phil is the loudest. There, I'll just say that.
Okay.
And you can pick.
Oh, we got a couple comments here.
We were in before you grab that real quick. We were doing an album with Sace, and we were in Canada, and he had a super reverb.
Nice.
What else did we have plugged in? I think there was a Fuchs that the studio owner had brought, and there was something else in there. And the way he dials them up is pretty much like on 10. They just like Strat to the Tube Screamer, 10, and he makes it look so easy. And he hands me the guitar, and it's like driving a jet fighter. They just drop you in and go. Yeah. I couldn't do anything with it.
No, that's too much for me all at once. Let me ease into that. Braxel commented, Michael, I still have that purple sparkle Friedman Vintage T, NAMM 2019, I got from from Wildwood, and it rules. I know that guitar because I played that guitar. Because that was the first Friedman guitar I ever played, because I love purple, I love sparkle, I love telly-shaped objects. And I went, well, if it's going to be the first one to try out. And I did that immediately. Also, Guitar Man 45 was wondering what mixer you use.
I don't really. If you want to say like interface, currently I'm at, it's right here. It's a Lynx Aurora. I still have to do a goodbye video to my old studio, the one that was in all the early videos. But so we moved out of there. There was 2 studios in there in our office. but I just work from home so much now that it didn't make sense to keep it. So over there, I was running Apogee Symphonies, and then here I've gone through Universal Audios and RME interfaces and so much good stuff. But yeah, I'm running the Lynx Aurora and Logic Pro. So I guess that's my mixer. I have a couple API preamps that you can see. I think that's right behind me. These API channels that sound amazing.
Yes.
This stuff over here is made by Overstayer. And then I have a huge rack in the closet full of stuff that I brought from the studio, Manleys and preamps. And then I have a rack right here, which here. That one I could kind of show you. Oh, it's too dark. But that's my baby rack with the Soldano and the Lexicons and things like that.
Nice. Modern Vintage asks, Mike, I'm considering buying that SLO watt for sale. Is that the one you profiled worth $9K? I had to buy another rack unit and use the bad one for parts.
Worth $9K. So what it is the slow watt. Sorry if you could hear my dog barking. The slow watt is Michael Soldano had built, I don't know, 5 high watts essentially. He did it wasn't even his take on it. It was a Soldano handmade high watts in a rack. So they're like 4 or 5 racks high. They weigh like 75 pounds. They're so heavy. Okay. And I don't know if you've ever plugged into a high watt. It's like glassy and harsh until you get it in the sweetest spot. And to get it in the sweetest spot, it's just explosively loud. You almost have to turn it, just start on 10 and work your way backwards. It's really intense. Anything below that is kind of a stiff, clean sound.
Okay.
So do I think it's worth $9K? I don't, to be honest. I think it's worth, it's all, it's all collector value because Mike made it. Because Mike Soldano made it, to be honest. True. So it's worth whatever you want to pay for it. As an amp, it's not my favorite amp. It's so hard to play through.
Hello to Alan Hanna. He says Michael's an amazing player.
Thank you.
Yep. I'm not going to deny that. We got Simon Hosford in the chat. Speaking of slaying fretboards, just saying. Previous username asks, what's your go-to amp or preamp flavor? The one you use 70% or more when you just play.
The Friedman Little Sister, which was the Dirty Shirley Mini, is very close. So like someone asked earlier, what would I take out if I was going to go play? That's usually my first look is that, because it's fat and it's a great like pedal platform. So the Dirty Shirley platform is what I took out the last time I played live. And it sounds good. You can't go wrong with it. It sounds good all the time. When I want to go a little more rock out than that, the Friedman BE100 that Dave made me is super awesome. And on the preamp side, I tend to go with the Soldano X88. It hits me in the soft spot, I guess.
Speaking of another fretboard slayer in the house, we've got Robert Baker. He says, Michael Nielsen. What's up, Mr. Baker?
My God.
Nice.
I do love the 80A MP1, though. That's one of my favorites. That's a blast to play through.
Dave Trombetti, who did say he is a prog rock fan. I knew it. Michael, I hear Canadian high watts sound different from American ones. Have you heard that?
I heard they're nicer. That's a Canadian joke. No, I haven't heard anything about if you're actually serious about it being different. I have not heard one way or the other.
Rumor has it they came with a different transformer. I believe it was similar to a Marshall transformer in them. That's what I've gathered. I've never actually seen one in the flesh, but that's what I've kind of gathered. But I know a lot of Canadian rock bands were playing through high watts in the early to mid 80s, and they sounded glorious. I'm looking at you, Brian Adams Band. Keith Scott, high watt.
Wow.
Bob Rock talked about it on Tone Talk. Oh, there we go. I will admit Bob Rock probably is more of an authority on it than I am. I'm just saying. Probably. Not guaranteed.
I don't know if I'm a huge like high watt. I can't pinpoint a high watt tone where I go like, yes, this is the high watt tone that really gets me going. You know, there's for every high watt tone, there's 500 Marshall tones and 200 Fender tones that I would put in front of it probably. Vox. But then, you know, people that love the high watt are bonkers for them. Like Steve Fryette is a high watt junkie. I think that's kind of like his, if you go into the Steve Fryette DNA, the VHT and Fryette heads, like there's a hardness to them. And I think that comes from his love of the high watt. Yeah.
Nice.
If anyone's ever played his Sound City amps, so the Sound City was a brand that sort of, I think, offshot from high watt. I forgot the name of the high watt like designer guy, but he jumped ship, did Sound City for a minute, and they're very inconsistent. You know, you'll get a good one, you'll get a bad one. And then they bought the name, and this is the new Sound Cities are like, a really modernized version of the high watt. That is amazing. It's like, it feels like Malcolm Young when you play through them. They're great.
That'd be cool. I have no problem with that. Not a problem at all. And welcome, Boner Jams. Always good to see you, my friend.
Best name ever.
It is. It is. One of the co-hosts of the Under the Bus Network every Wednesday night, folks, 9 p.m. Eastern. Mr. Anderson 59 asks, does the ADA MP1 do the White Lion thing?
Yeah, oh, totally. Yeah, it does it really, really well. So Vito on Pride, the album with Weight, apparently he had a Marshall that he bought from Leslie West, or Leslie West gave him it when they were on tour. And then he was using a tube screamer. And it sort of has that rounded tone, and it's great. He was using a Strat with a JB pickup. And he's such a good player. He could play through anything. And then he went on for their Big Game album with Little Fighter. Michael Wagner was producing that. And I don't know who brought, that was everyone that came through Michael Wagner got the ADA MP1 treatment, especially of that era of like White Lion and Skid Row and Extreme. They all got that. So he would run this Furman PQ3 up front, and I think it was to compensate for how long their cable run was. So that's a really interesting sounding box. It's a slight preamp. It's clean preamp and EQ. It's like having a MXR micro amp, basically. Deluxe version of it. And then it would hit the ADA MP1. And then it was the mid-late 80s, so of course it hit a BBE Sonic Maximizer to get all the treble at every frequency, maximum treble. So that the BBE is really not necessary for the sound. It's better. You're better off just dialing in EQ with a EQ somewhere else, because whatever it adds, it also takes away. You lose some stuff in there. But the ADA MP1 will totally do Nuno, Metallica, Vito. It's really great. So nice. There's a new plugin by Nimbrini that came out. That's a plugin replica of the ADA MP1. That's very good. Nimbrini makes great stuff. I haven't reviewed any of this stuff But I played it. It's great. And then if you have a Kemper, I have 80 amp. I have a lot of all the preamp packs for the Kemper. If you just use software, I've brought that stuff over to a software called THU by a company called Overloud. Sorry. And then this new IK Multimedia platform, the Tone X. I'm in the process of moving stuff over to Tone X.
Okay.
So, yeah, if you don't want to spend
the new hot kid in town, I keep hearing Tone X everywhere. Tone X.
It's cool. It is the next level. It's not perfect yet, for sure. Like, the amp guys don't necessarily have to be any more worried than they were with the Kempers. But it's better in many ways than that last generation of things. It's getting there, but it is cool. Like this whole thing with the Kemper, for instance, I showed Bad Cat amps. This new line of Bad Cat amps. Have you had a chance to check any of those out yet, Ben?
I haven't played on any, but I recall watching your video on them.
They're super cool. Whole new lineup of Bad Cat amps. And like inevitably I'll get a comment that's like, cool, make a Kemper profile of that. And that bums me out a little bit because like that's not the point. And I get it. Like I want a $15 version of all that stuff too. But for me, the point was like spend $5,000 on a Bogner Fish preamp and another $5,000 on a VHT 2150 power amp is impossible.
Right.
Like you have to be a crazy person to do that, really. So like, you get Tone X and I'll get one of my packs and it's awfully close. No old rack stuff's really finicky too. Sometimes like, wow, people use this. It's such a nightmare to set up and keep dialed in. And
sure. Robert Baker asks, what amp do you think is the least versatile yet has the usable tone? Probably the most usable tone.
That's complicated. But the first thing that popped into my head, and then a second one just popped in my head. First one that popped in my head was the Marshall Silver Jubilee. Because I feel like it has one sound. And you set the master volume on 10 and you hope the amp survives it. When I did that first time it died, I think that the tubes just blew up. But the next time you set it on 10 and then you set the preamps to taste after that, it's going to be crazy loud. But it's Slash, Strode Bonamassa. It's so awesome. It's a really great sound. But that's it. They didn't even need to have knobs on the front panel. They could just turn it on.
Just have it set to that. There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe just a volume control of some kind to taste, I guess.
Yeah. Ben, okay. Do you have an answer for this, Ben? What would be your amp?
Triple rectifier.
I was gonna say dual rectifier, but yes, there you go.
Just thought, since I wasn't really thinking, but that was my gut reaction. Like, yep, it does a thing. It does it well, but that's all it does.
Yep, nailed it. Bam.
Nothing wrong with that. Yep. Yeah, I can't say that, but a lot of more amps seem to be a little more versatile in the dial-in ability, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Load of Fruitcake Tony coming in here. Bozique's in here, and we got a new channel member, Jay Steen. Welcome to the club, my friend. Awesome. What's your take on Extreme's new single?
I love it. It made me so happy. Like,
I haven't heard the whole song. What I've heard, though, I can just say is ridiculous. That's all I can say. It's ridiculous.
Nuno's superhuman.
Yep.
I don't know how he does it. Yeah, it's awesome. It's less funky than what I would want, but I'm 100% sure there's going to be some awesome like funk metal stuff on this album. So, but this was a cool song. It was heavy, good song. His tone sounds good. His playing is unbelievable. and he had
Like,
whammy bar
was
on
he
it. Which
woodshedding during the entire pandemic? Apparently,
it sounds like it, right?
right? Like, this is what happens when Nuno woodsheds. No, this is not. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the
Have you met
rapture.
Nuno? That's a question. Have you met Nuno?
Have I? No.
No.
I've never even come close. I don't know if I don't love meeting my heroes. I was lucky enough to meet Lukather. So I worked at Guitar Center in like 1999, and he came in, and I was just so starstruck. And I ran at full speed across the store. He was just about to leave, and I was like, I said something, and then I ran off because I was in the middle of working with a customer. And I just remember the look on his face, like, what just happened? Look at a psychopath here.
Right.
And then I met him again like 10 years ago, and he was the nicest, sweetest, most gracious person. And that's it. I want to say, cool. Got my Lukather in. Now I'm good.
I don't know if I've had any bad experiences meeting anyone. People in the music industry are pretty cool. Not gonna lie. And those that aren't cool, you can't get to them because they have their little entourages and handlers and yes people. So,
I wonder. I don't know.
The
if
legend
it's them.
himself,
I think it's
Ty
me.
Price, in the chat. Good to see you, Ty. Great to see you. He says, "Hey Ben, good to see you. I love Michael's channel. Any good Sykes stories from his time working with him?"
Oh, he's such a trip. Yeah, so I was like 29. I think I was like 29 when I was working with Sykes. I was put together with his tour manager. So he managed my production team and doing pop music and stuff. And I kept saying, like, dude, you got to introduce me. You got to introduce me. And Sykes wasn't doing anything for ages. Like, he's not, seemingly not doing anything now. But he was going to go do this Japanese tour and do a record of it. And they needed someone to record it. So he put me together. And that was one of those times where, like, I hadn't seen, it was kind of before, like, there was a lot of internet YouTubes and stuff. So I hadn't seen him. I just watched Valley of the Kings and Jelly Roll videos. So I'm seeing 25-year-old Sykes. And then, I see grown man, 50-year-old Sykes, and or later, I don't know how old he was, but I didn't know if it was him or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Oh, I didn't recognize you at all, man." And he goes, "Oh yeah, I didn't recognize you either." I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm an idiot." But he couldn't have been more of a gentleman. He's like that classic, old English rock star that they don't make anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
Want to shout out Fruitcake Tony. I'm going to be on Fruitcake Tony's channel this coming Saturday. Show me your pick. Subject of the week, Ronnie Wood. So if you want to hear all the Ronnie Wood trivia and factoids and nerdery, I'm going to be spewing them on Saturday night.
Something jumped out here. Is it worth getting a dirty Shirley pedal when I've got a small box pedal, or are they too similar? They're similar in, I guess, their DNA, but they are quite different. The Dirty Shirley is definitely rounder and fatter. The small box is one of my favorite amp in a box Marshall pedals.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say if you're looking for more of a Soundgarden-y thick overdrive, or just a round kind of maybe tube screamer, but not big fat tube screamer, go Dirty Shirley. If you want a Marshall, go small box.
There we go. Speaking of favorite Marshalls and boxes, there's LPD Pedals himself. What's up, Lawrence?
Yeah. Lawrence is a wizard.
He is. I don't know what kind of wizardry he does inside those pedals. I think he said it's like ground up unicorn dust or something. I don't know. It works. I saw someone asking about third power amps. Thoughts?
Oh yeah, they're so great. I think it helps. I don't know. I have this kind of weird theory that maybe if the the designer is a great guitar player, it helps get something out of it. Maybe not. I've only heard Dave Friedman play guitar like a total of 4 seconds, I think. It sounded like rock, but you know, I don't know if he's a great player or not. But their powers are really good. Handmade, everything is hand wired in the USA. So if that is important to you, that is it's right there. They make killer stuff. I have a 212 cab here also that is sort of life changing, because for the longest time 412s are the only way I was able to get an awesome sound. And then I made IRs and I was happy with it because I would just get frustrated miking up stuff. But this 212 is wicked cool. And looks like a normal 212, but internally she has this triangle math that she does. So there's no standing waves and stuff. It's very cool. Someone asked if I shaved the side of my head. All right. So what happened is last night, I was like, oh, I got to record something tomorrow. So let me just trim my hair a little bit. And I set the shaver what I thought was right. And I went, oh, and it went so bald through there. And I was like, well, guess that's what I'm doing. So
that's why I don't cut my hair. I just don't. We have a Michael Torrance sighting in the chat. He says, you just called me crazy.
Yeah. Well, we knew that though, Mike.
Yeah. Good to see you.
It's just how crazy is really the question. Is
crazy is good. Let's see here. Modern Vintage says, how and when do you use the Jakey Lee versus the BE?
Well, the Jakey Lee now is owned by Michael Torrin. And that was, I had, I go back and forth. Like, I don't have a lot of space. So even when I have 2 studios, or my home and the studio, sometimes there's just too much stuff. And I just freak out. I'm like, got to get rid of some stuff.
I kind of know the feeling. I'm just saying, I kind of know the feeling.
And the Jake is unbelievably good. I think the reason I sold it to Mike, he was very, he's the best guy to sell stuff to, because I know where it is. If I ever want to hear it again, it's there. But it was right when COVID happened, and all of my business stopped. So I wasn't sure if I'm like, oh, I might have to sell everything. So that was one consideration. But the other thing was that my favorite part of the Jake head was dialing it to sound like a JCM 800, which it does. And Michael Torrin actually has this beautiful sounding JCM 800 that you could get them to sound almost identical. I mean, of course, the Jake goes to the next level and then beyond. But my favorite part of it was the 800 sound that was in there. So, and then I liked how the BE 100 went to that next level. I like it a little better. It's a weird thing. Like the Steve Stevens 100 that I think is an incredible amp. That blew my mind. I was like, well, this is going to be it for me. And then I went back and played my BE 100 and I was like, wow, this is really great too. So it was kind of whichever amp I played last was my favorite. And, I ended up sticking with my BE 100.
Fair enough. But like you say, where it is.
Yeah. I mean, technically, I know where everything is because Mike Torrin owns everything.
That's handy. It's good to know those kind of people.
Yeah, it's like a museum. Beautiful. Have I played the JEL Mini? Nope.
The amp that technically doesn't exist.
It technically doesn't exist. I saw a red little box. That's all I could say. But I have not touched or played.
Yeah,
but I would be very excited to. get one of
That
those.
was faster, like a world's record for Where's Waldo. As soon as that thing made an appearance, I'm just saying, there it is. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
My phone's blowing up. There it is. I'm like, there's what? I missed it. What?
It kept moving around. That's awesome.
John Shane likes his B100D as well. Sure.
Is that something about? Let me go back here. The Carlstons, modern vintage. Have I played a Karsten? Sorry. Oh, Dave said he liked one. So, no, but I'm talking with them. They've been very cool. That's a new. I think I would consider them a new amp company. They do a Billy Corgan signature amp.
Cool.
But I haven't really heard any of their amps. But I believe I might be getting my hands on one in the next 30 days or something. And so I'll do a quick little video on that if I can.
Awesome.
They have a really cool aesthetic. It's like a modern, sleek, minimalist sort of aesthetic, which is nice.
Bent Tom, this is his thing. No 45-100 style heads for Malcolm Young /Cream/Hendrix tone.
For that stuff, I go Dirty Shirley. So I mean that's 45-ish. Well, I do the Dirty Shirley Mini, and then my BE100 is BE on one side and Dirty Shirley on the other. So it does that too. And I have an old Basement head that is awesome for kind of that vibe.
Nice. Before I get to Dan in New Jersey's question, I have a question. Why is the Tyler the greatest studio guitar ever made?
Yeah, I mean that I cannot. I'm supposed to get it like this week, I think. Why? I think probably the same reason that like Marshalls just sounds so good, in that like that's what the stuff was played on that defined the sound. You know, if Marshalls never existed and everyone played on high watts, I would probably think like high watt is the sound in my head that I'm looking for. So when you get Jim Tyler was the 80s kind of like dude for modding guitars and stuff. You've got like Tom Anderson, he's around and he was making parts, and but all of these guys were coming into Jim Tyler, and Jim Tyler would tweak out the wiring and do these cool like series parallel kind of deals and add the Demeter preamps, and he's talking to Seymour Duncan about like maybe we could do stack coils and all this stuff. He was like so in the mix for this guitar technology boom in the 80s. And you know, you hear Michael Jackson records and Madonna records and Toto records and all this stuff. If it wasn't a Tyler guitar, there's a good chance that it was a Strat that was gutted and rebuilt basically by Tyler.
Right.
You know, at the end of the day, it's a guitar. You know, there's a point where, you know, you could spend $20,000 on a guitar. Is it that different than a $5,000 or $2,000 or $500 guitar? It's a guitar. But there is a, you know, when you get micro down into it, you're like, oh, that's the sound I heard on this record. And that's how they get that sound. And it's, you know, a lot of it's Tyler.
I agree. And I also think Robert Baker should get a Tyler. He needs one. He's a child of the 80s. Clearly. He needs one.
Yes.
Just saying that.
Yeah.
And I did see another question here. Oh, Modern Vintage was asking, which API gear do you use? Modern, Vintage, Recent? Do you usually run those with all your guitar demos and videos?
Yeah, that's my primary preamp. So I run a these channel strips. They're called the 7600. So I've had them for 15, 20 years ish. Whenever they came out. So they're not vintage, but APIs, you could get a vintage API and you could get one today. And it sounds like an API. They're pretty much the same thing.
That's one thing I know about with that stuff, because I watched like an 1.5 hour podcast with the API guys. I don't know how I went down that rabbit hole one day, Michael Nielsen.
That's a long road to get to API podcast.
Yeah, it was. Oof. Yeah, I didn't mind it though.
So yeah, the guitar is funny because you could record guitar with built-in preamps on a Focusrite, and you go, oh, okay, $200 interface. That sounds good. It totally sounds good. The API, so everything gets down into these little like 0.5%, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a bunch of them, then you'll start to hear it. The APIs have a very strong sound that puts the guitar sort of like, I feel like a little step forward. It's not transformative. If you have a bad sound, it's just going to give you a bad sound a little forward. A lot of the inexpensive preamps are just going to sound like flat, like there it is. Like a Neve sometimes feels a little more harmonically rich with a really low extended bottom. The APIs don't have so much deep low bottom, but also then you end up cutting off that to present it. So I feel like APIs on guitars is really the sweet spot. And yeah, when I'm doing the demos, I try to give just like the most a balanced thing and not shift it in one way. Like sometimes it's frustrating for me because like, oh, I want to add a little delay or reverb, but if that's not part of what the product is, then I don't want to misrepresent it. I try in the opening songs of my demos. Sometimes I feel like that's for me. I just want to show you like, this is the best I can do. Let me show you how good I can make this sound. So like if you were listening to a record, you go like, dang, what is this person using? I want to know. The same way I would be like, I want to know what they used on this record. And then for the talking part, I try and keep it like as nude and raw as possible.
Makes perfect sense to me. And yes, Rob Baker in the chat as well. You need a Tyler too. I saw that. Yes, you're a lawyer. You can afford it.
Yeah, I heard the breakdown of lawyers yesterday. There's a lot of lawyers around.
Yeah, that was, who knew? Have to start wearing colored shirts or something on air. I don't know about that. No, that will not.
Braxel said Demeter VTMP2A. Have you heard of that one? Yes, Demeter stuff is great. Preamps are great. I think everything he makes was tube. Jim Demeter, I think is the same Jim. But Demeter, their tube DI box is like beautiful, and their amps are great.
Tom says his ex-wife's a corporate attorney, so that means he can't afford a Tyler. But you have matching Metropolis heads, so let's be honest now. Where was that question? Oh, Hip Metalworks was asking, what's your plugin of choice for recording guitars?
Either it comes down to what I'm doing. For work, typically, I'll most often go to Amplitude because I feel like I can make that sound vintage and crunchy and nasty. Like if I need to get a Jack White sound, I know how to get it out of Amplitude. I think it'll go there. If I am doing something for fun, I usually call up Overloud's THU because they're sounds that I made. So they're just like, I know exactly where to look and they're all exactly dialed into what I want. And occasionally I'll use the Neural. I like the Plini plugin, which it's got this great delay reverb thing. And if I want to be spacey, it's pretty nice for that.
Nothing wrong with that. Charles 75 Vents reporting in. I was going to wet sand tonight, but this is too good and requires my full attention. Sorry, Randy. Sorry, Randy. Hashtag sorry, Randy in the chat. There you go, folks.
Someone asked what I did with Selena Gomez,
Mm-hmm.
which I saw and then I forgot. It went by.
I
don't
believe
know.
that was Dan in New Jersey that asked that.
Oh, sweet. I was working on a musical movie. I guess that's what you call it, a musical. It's not like they sung all the lyrics, but it was it would break into a lot of songs.
Yeah, they have a tendency to just when you least expect it, they'll break into song. You never know.
That's how it goes.
Yep.
This is more like along the lines of like Pitch Perfect. And it was sort of towards the end of when I was doing a lot of the Disney related stuff. And so we wrote all the music for that movie and did a bunch of songs and got to write a couple songs for Selena Gomez. It was right as she was launching her solo career. So that ended up being her first single that I wrote with a couple other great writers as well. And then the other writers ended up re-recording it also for her first album, which was cool too. She's a very, very, very cool girl. And she was little. So, I mean, she wasn't like little, but she was before she was a like ultra mega star at that point.
I'd like to point out that Stephen Douglas says, my wife thinks I'm watching Below Deck with her, but I'm actually listening to this.
Oh, dude. I love Below Deck. It's great. My two like guilty pleasures of TV is Below Deck and Love Island UK or Love Island Australia. I don't like the American Love Island at all. In fact, there's a new Love Island UK tonight, so I know what I'll be doing.
There we go. Nice. And if you haven't already, folks, please hit the thumbs up. And if you're new, please subscribe. A few new names in here. It's always great to see. Rob Baker, the lawyer, does want to comment. He hasn't worn tan pants in 20 years. That's the beauty of being the kind of lawyer that doesn't go to court. Jeans and visible tattoos for me. That's why Rob Baker is my lawyer when I'm in the United States.
Brent Tom said, another Cinderella story. Yeah, that's the movie that we did. And is Selena as pretty in person? Yes, and it's crazy because I've had the really awesome fortune of I don't know if you remember this girl Carmen Electra. Do you remember her?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like Carmen Electra.
Yeah, I remember the 90s. I'm just saying.
That's right. I mean, I've had this great pleasure of meeting a lot of famous people.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as you meet them, you're like, oh, I get it. That's why you're famous. You're like, you have a glow. Like, you're more beautiful than anyone else I've seen all month. It just is, you carry yourself in a totally different way. I don't know if if it's the chicken or the egg, what happens first, but same goes with rock stars. Like, when you meet a legend, it's like, oh, I get it. You're a legend.
Exactly. We got another new channel member, Charles75N, decided to become a double dipper. I know he was a patron of the channel, but he's also a channel member now. Awesome.
Woo-hoo.
John Duchesne was asking, do you play out at all?
No, I did for my kids' school, like a charity gala event, but that was it. I'd like to, but I just don't have the wherewithal to do it. One day I got to get with Mike Torn because he's a good bass player. Like, we got to start something.
Got a lot of Selena Gomez. This is clearly the most Selena Gomez chat I've ever seen in my chat. I'm just saying. Oh, okay. Rob Baker does industrial real estate transactional law. That's just entertaining and gripping, I'm sure.
Favorite strings. I think it's the Diodario NYXLs.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of expensive though, so I put them on my Les Paul. I think I have them on my Tele and the Shabbat. I think maybe everything is on NYXLs at the moment, but sometimes I get lazy and I'm just like, you know what? I'll just put Ernie Balls or whatever. on there. But if you could just say what one string for the rest of your life, that would be it. They stay in tune really well. NYXT. Is it at XT?
The XTs are the more, I find, yeah, they're the pricier ones. They have a slight coating on them. They're great.
Let me see. Hang on. Yeah, just just XLs. I'm just cheap, so
nice.
Whatever these are, they work. I wouldn't dare go.
That's what Haas uses. He loves them.
Who?
Simon Hosford.
Oh, nice. Yeah, they sound great. I went real cheap on strings for a while, and it was a nightmare. Like, I couldn't keep guitars in tune, and I didn't realize why.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I changed strings, it was just like, oh, that's why.
Ted Nagurski asks, who's the best bass player that each of us have played with?
I had a band in my 20s when I had production company too. And we were doing it was kind of like a Lenny Kravitz-y thing. We had this amazing singer. We had an amazing drummer. The drummer was Fred Eltringham, who is he keeps showing up in all of the Nashville videos. He's like #1 top 10 Nashville drummer now. Unbelievable. And our bass player was this guy, Don Boyette, who played with Michael Jackson for I think the whole Bad tour, maybe 2 tours of around then. And Stevie Nicks, and it was just absolutely, the rhythm section was bonkers. Like we would do showcases for record labels, and they were probably too good because they'd go like, "You guys are unbelievable. The band is fine. You guys are great."
Yeah, and that's when they're like, "Okay, you lose those 2, we'll sign the." Yeah. One of those situations. Yeah, I get that. For me, barring a jam session that I can't remember, I will go with the Imperial Larry Babcock, who I played in a few bands with, who was a human metronome. Hell of a guy, hell of a player, and greatly missed. He's no longer with us. And yeah, Larry Babcock. Played a 70s P bass, and man, hell of a player.
It's such a pleasure when the rhythm section crushes like that.
He could never find a drummer he liked, but that's okay. Oh. he was accommodating. Although he could keep your drummer in time, that was the great thing too. Because when you had him in the band, because he would give you dirty looks if you were out of time.
Yeah, I learned so much from Don, our bass player. He was so accomplished, but he was kind of slumming it with us, to be honest. Super cool guy, but if you ever messed up, he'd say like, "Oh, look at this dude, he's sea hunting like a submarine. You sea hunt," but really he's saying like you're just searching for a note. You got to know your note.
Simon Hosford says, "Thanks for your amazing channel, Michael. You do all the many hours of work, deep diving, exploring on behalf of the benefit of all of us." Well said.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
There's Presley, California Customs. Just finishing up a telly. That's a fine excuse. Working on tellies is a fine excuse.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's talking string talk. I like the Darios. I don't mind Ernie Balls. Hate GHS boomers.
Why?
I can't even put a set on without breaking a string.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm lucky to get all the 6 strings up to pitch without snapping one. So I stay away, and I only used them originally because my dad used them. He's all the boomers. Those are what I use. Well, okay, Dad. Snap, 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 snap. Your guitar needs a setup. Okay. take it to his guy. Snap, 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 snap. Oh. Have you tried any of the Audioscape studio gear?
Audioscape. I'm unfamiliar. So that's a no, but Audioscape Geo Gear. Oh, okay. So I'm guessing it's kind of like Warm Audio, maybe something like that. No.
I'm not familiar myself.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not familiar.
Welcome Head First Amplification. Says, hey guys, love both your channels. Cool hang. I love your channel. Just
Thanks.
saying.
Yeah, you too.
The love is mutual.
Someone asked where Big Hairy Guitar's name comes from. This was like, the hair metal channel on XM radio and stuff. It's just kind of big hair and Big Hairy Guitars. Because the whole thing was originally, like I said, it was just going to be me doing covers of Zakk Wylde and doing my best to try and play some Nuno and Brada stuff. And it got away from me.
What's your favorite drive pedal?
That's a tough one. Two that I'm really digging. I'll give you three that I'm really digging right now.
Okay.
The Sean Tubbs Rev pedal. I forget what it's called.
The Tilt.
Tilt. Thank you. The Tilt.
Canadian made.
So good. I just got a Kingsley Harlot, which is a tube
Nice
pedal, which sounds amazing for like low gain stuff. And
Kingsley does amazing stuff.
Got a Roger Mayer Voodoo 1 to try and cop some Michael Landau stuff, and that is a revelation. Super cool.
Nice. What's up, D-Mac? Absolute mayhem. I'm going to go with the Nice Drive, eh? I'm just saying.
What's the Nice Drive?
That's my signature drive from LPD Pedals. No longer in service, so, they're going up in value by the minute, honest. It's like a Class A tube amp in a box that just pushes an amp ever so nicely. You use it as a clean boost, dirty boost, whatever you want to do with it. Got a treble, got a bass. I was using this to push an amp the other day, and it was funny. I grabbed a bunch of boost pedals, and then finally I grabbed this one, and it was perfect right out of the box. I'm like, are you kidding me? And was doing a video chat like this, and Buddy's like, which one was it? I'm like, my signature pedal. He goes, well, that kind of makes sense. But Cartman 45 has one. I think Ben Tom has one as well.
Is that the full name? Nice pedal, eh?
Nice drive, eh? With a question
Nice
mark.
drive. Nice drive, eh?
And a maple leaf on it because, that was Lawrence's idea.
That's rad.
I think we did 2 runs of them.
Super cool.
I can see about doing another run, but we'd have to do pre-orders, Graphite and Cigars is all I'm saying. Jay Steen has one. Stephen Douglas, I've been running an SD9 in front of a Landau DeVille glorious tone. I bet.
Yeah, that's the stuff. So good.
Terry's asking, thoughts on new tube based amps?
Well, I'm not super snobby about the technology. So like solid state amps, I love solid state amps, like a good old PV solid state. I have a great time with. So the new tube stuff, like, I don't know if it brings that much to the party beyond like how the design of the amp is. Like the blue guitar amp, the Amp 1, I believe it's called. Sounds awesome. I think there's a tube in there. I mean, I don't know to what capacity it's affecting the tone, but there's a tube in there. It could be a new tube. It could be a 12AX7. I don't really care if at the end of the day, it's just got to be cool sounding.
Hey, Sassy Cat says, can a fella say hello before the stream ends? Sure. Yeah, we're going to go another 10 minutes or so here, folks. There's Dylan Washburn from Flipside Music out of Denver, Colorado. Not this address. They're moving. Just the phone number is the same. But yes, he got my message because I'm trying to source a specific Tele bridge. He's on the case. Awesome. If you can source the bridge, perfect. If you can source a part number, that's fine too. Whatever we can do, figure it out.
John DeShane said, do I have experience with the ODR1 circuit? If so, what's your flavor? Yeah, I have. I just bought the cheapest one I could, their latest reissue, and it sounds good. It's huge. There's some times where I plug that in and think like, that's it. That's the best overdrive pedal there is. And then I'll sort of work my way back from that because it can scoop the sound a little bit. It has this huge bottom end, which initially just like lulls you into the sweet spot of happiness. Mm-hmm. But it's a really good pedal and super underpriced. If they changed the box and changed the name to something silly and charged $250, they would sell just as many, I'm sure.
Nice. Okay, now Dylan knows his pedals. He says overlooked overdrive. That's fantastic. Is the hotcake or in the hotcake family is the Wade Huge STO?
STO.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Me neither. I do have a Way Huge Red Llama, which is pretty killer. I have an original.
Jeff Nixon says for $99, the Nobles is unbeatable.
It totally is.
I gotta get one of them. He says, see what I mean? Very overlooked, but so good. Do you have a spare one, Dylan? I'm just saying. Flipside Music does have over 1,000 pedals in stock at any given time, so they're one of those cool stores where I could just spend a week. Stephen Douglas asks, what pedals would you use to get a good 80s metal tone in front of a Dirty Shirley?
The 87 from Petros is amazing. I mean, it's everything that I love about 1987 in that one pedal. It's really, really, really great. I guess you could go with like the Friedman small box too. There's a lot of like Marshall-y. Wampler makes some good. I can't remember what the Wampler Hot Marshall is called. But the one I use, like that I keep around for that, is the Petros.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels good. It's got like a little extra squish to it.
Yep.
It's not hard and bitey.
Stephen Douglas is reporting in. Show turned off. His wife heard, I have a Way Huge Red Llama.
That's great.
Perfect. Wampler Sovereign. That could be it. It's cool over
Yes, yeah. Yeah, the Sinvertex stuff is awesome too. It's just expensive and kind of hard to get sometimes. So, if you could get one, that's killer.
Modern Venture says a vintage ODR is worth every cent. I've heard that. Tim Pierce was talking about that last week. And he's currently got a guy who's trying to clone his favorite ODR, I believe.
Oh, I'd buy that.
Yeah, me too. I was like, do say, Tim, do say.
Mm-hmm.
Have him make a few spares.
Yeah, for sure. There's a couple tweaks that it needs. Well, you know what? To be honest, I haven't heard a vintage one. So maybe the vintage one is everything it's supposed to be. The reissue needs like a bass cut, which I think they added to the latest reissue. So I don't know. Maybe that's it.
Okay. Ted Nagurski is going to stop by Flipside and look for a resonator guitar. Great idea. Any new pedals getting closer to rack delay, reverb, and mods?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm trying to find it out because I don't know if you guys know. I don't know how it's pronounced. Hot one? Hotone?
Hotone?
Hotone. So I just got this. It does everything, you know, like a fractal, but I don't care about that side of it at all. It's an overpowered chip in there, and they have models of the TC 2290 and the tri-stereo chorus delay and stuff. So all I want to try it out is turn off all the amps and just see if it can compete in a rack zone. So I'll let you know.
Good to know. There's Lawrence Cash getting off work. Awesome. Dylan Washburn says modern ODR1 does have the bass cut, and it's great.
I might have to flip mine to that.
What's up, Dwight Bailey? Octopus Ears is in here too. Martin Vinch says ODR1 plus an RC booster is the key. Okay. Previous username uses mostly an SD1 and an EP3 with his Plexi. Classic combo. Wampler Bell is a great ODR1, has the bass cut knob too. There we are. Wampler Bell, I've seen that on a lot of boards.
No, I bought one of those. If you're talking about the Mini, I don't know if that's the only one, but it's a small pedal. It didn't sound to me anything like my new ODR1. So I was trying to find that thing that was the same thing, just smaller, and it was too different. It was cool. It was really cool pedal, but it just didn't bring what I was hoping for, which was very similar to that, just like 5% shift.
All right. Question from me. Any vintage pedals that you feel the need to keep around that are go-to little, like I have to, you know, this has to be in my life? Anyone's?
Are you asking me, or is that your question?
Yeah, no, you. Yeah.
For you.
No, I have. Yeah, I've got a few vintage pedals, but you, yes.
I'm so sorry. I was waiting for you to answer. I thought you were deep in thought.
I have a Boss CE2 that refuses to leave my life, so that's.
You know what? It died, but up until the point it died, like a year and a half ago, I would have said an old MXR Dynacomp, which was hands down the best compressor pedal I've ever heard, and it died. It got super crackly and we just occasionally spit like the loudest like blurp noises. So that would be my number one. Some of these I'd love to get again. I just can't bring myself to pay $900 for a pedal.
Graphite Cigars asks, what's Michael's delay of preference?
I really like when I went and did that little show for my kids' school. I went through a ton of delays because, you know, if you're going to go play for a half hour, you need to spend a lot of money and you need to bring as much gear as possible.
I fully agree. Yep.
So, highly curated rigs we all brought. So I went through all of the delays, and really it came down to my favorite was the Boss DD500 at the time. Boss delays, they just fit. Like, they're not necessarily the most colored. Also, the Strymon L cap is awesome. But what was cool about the DD500 is you could set, I ran it through the effects loop, and then you could set your level too. So if you have like a light slapback in your rhythm sound, and then the next pedal switch over, you get like a longer delay tone, like for a Neil Sean thing. You could set your level in the effects loop to go up. So with one button, you're getting the level boost and your whole tone changing, all the goo. And they sounded good. I didn't have to fuss with it. Once I set it, it was like, yeah, that's cool. That's a delay sound.
We'll go with one more question, and this one's from Robert Baker. What iconic pedal was the biggest disappointment?
And the biggest disappointment. Well,
I know more.
I'll give you two. What early on was when I bought a fuzz face in like the late 90s. I bought a fuzz face and I didn't really understand it. And I thought maybe, you know, such into this metal and I just wanted it to be huge. I don't know why I went with a fuzz face, but it was just, I plugged it into a clean tone and it was horrible. Dual rectifier clean tone.
Mm-hmm.
It was like this at low volumes. It was awful. It was because I was dumb. And then now I still go back and forth on tube screamers. Sometimes, you know, I've heard a lot of the cool vintage.
That was my answer. I can't do tube screamers. I can't do it.
You do.
I'm already too mid focused. I swear, I have mids in my hands. I don't need more. I don't.
There you go. We're brothers.
Yeah. The last time I plugged in a tube screamer, I thought I had a cocked wah on my board.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, what is going on here? And I'm like, why do I have so many mids? I have all the mids. This is not working.
I'll hear it with other people too, that it's not my favorite. But, you know, to each his own. The playing is usually great.
It just means more for everybody else. That's the way I see it.
Yeah.
And the Blues Driver didn't do anything for me either. No.
Oh, yeah. I haven't had one of those in a long time.
No, fair. I only tried one once. I tried the Wazacraft one, and I flipped it into the Waza mode, and I thought that was worse. You know, that's clearly not my pedal. That is clearly not designed for me.
That's a bad sign.
Yeah.
I do love, like, I get snobby, but I do love just like a good MXR pedal and a OD, like Boss OD2, like the SD3, I think I get confused on what they changed the OD and SDs. Yellow pedal 3 and yellow pedal 1 and 2. All the yellow pedals sound good to me.
Yep.
You find the yellow pedal.
The OD2 is the turbo overdrive. It's 4 knobs because it has the turbo on or off.
I like that.
OD1's 2 knob, SD1's 3 knob.
They all work for me, but Tube Screamer doesn't.
Yeah. It's the symmetrical as opposed to asymmetrical diode clipping. And don't ask me which one's which. I can't remember. One has one, one's the other. That's all I know.
Apparently, I'm
on that note,
to the other.
We should probably wrap things up. We'll definitely have to do this again, Michael. This is just too much fun.
Totally. And thank you for having me.
Yes.
And thank you for all joining.
Yes. Great crowd tonight. I'll be back live this Sunday with Rob Cunningham from Didario. So
awesome.
We might talk about some strings amongst other products, and as well as his playing, because he's got some nice gear and yeah, he's got some nice stuff and plays good too. He's a good player. So hold the line here and we'll wrap things up. So as always, folks, special thanks to everybody that tuned in tonight. Please hit the like, subscribe if you're new. Extra thanks to the new channel members and super chatters. Shout out to the Mod Squad, #Mod Squad. And as always, hold those doors open. Let Ferdburfel ahead of you in traffic because he's off doing something. I don't know. Probably buying a guitar. Be good to each other. Happy tone chasing. And, of course, don't litter.
Why do you scream at me? Why do you think that it's free? It's not a choice made by me. Once we fall, soon you'll see. When I looked into your eyes, I can see we need to change our lives. Let me in, then we both win. But not knowing that you're killing me. This silence, it's building, tearing me fearfully. This silence, it's building, Ah!